All right, here we are on another episode of The Grail. This is going to be motorcycle talk, which is one of my favorite things to talk about on the planet. Rode for 35 years. I've had every kind of motorcycle there is, pretty much. And of course, I did most of my comedy on a motorcycle. I've done over 5,000 shows, and I'd say 4,000 of them were probably done on a motorcycle around America. And my guest today is the CEO of North America, Ducati. Introduce yourself, my man.
My name is Jason Chinnock, and as you said, I'm the CEO of Ducati North America.
Great to have you, man.
My pleasure.
We're out here in Fort Collins, Colorado. Our mutual friend, the great Josh Warner of Good Art Hollywood, who has been on the show, introduced us, and I've been trying to have you on for 4 years or so?
I know Josh has been talking about it, and between, I think, your schedule and mine, I don't have, let's say, as many tour dates, but I think we just happen to make the luck of being able to connect this weekend, which is cool.
Yeah, this is total luck. Also, in this era, we could have done it on Zoom, but it's one of those things where if I don't see Josh, then it's out of sight, out of mind. And so I'm glad this is happening. How are you?
I'm doing good, but I have to tell you, in person, way better than Zoom. Because, man,
way better. I hate Zoom.
I 10 Zoom calls a day. If I have to have another Zoom call when it's supposed to be something fun, like even though motorcycles is a lot of fun, I can't argue. But I'm doing well. It's actually been a great year for us. Good living. Splitting my time between Colorado and California and the road. As you said, you've experienced a little bit of what's going on here in the town of Fort Collins, and it's good quality of life, but the motorcycle business is great. I mean, I actually feel like right now, and it sounds like you and I have both been riding bikes for a very long time. I feel like the last 2 years, and let's say it maybe is pandemic influenced, that we're kind of ushering in this new renaissance of motorcycling, which is really exciting, because I think a couple years ago, people were worried of well, what am I going to do with my free time? I need some mental health. I can't go do all the other activities. And so motorcycling has become a big part of what people do again, which, maybe they're not as hardcore. I don't care. You got two wheels under you, I'm happy.
It's an interesting time for motorcycles for sure, because you have the pandemic. It was a way that you could go do something, and if you couldn't go to the movies or a concert, you could get out on two wheels and be away from people and live life how you should have probably been living it outside of your house, away from a computer screen, and taking in stuff with your eyes and senses, And then you have right now the highest gas in the history of America. So now you've got people that are riding, and this goes in waves with motorcycle industry. Gas will get up. I remember it got up to $3 a gallon, and people are like, "Oh God, I got to ride." And then it drops back down, and the motorcycles collect dust in the garage or whatever. And then here it is. But this particular time for motorcycle industry is something I've never seen, where the used market commands as much or more as a new one because of supply issues, quote unquote, and all of that shit. So it's really weird, because a few years ago, you could get a used motorcycle, say a Harley, that was 5-10 years old, 5 years, and you could get it for no money.
Yeah.
And now those things are selling for crazy money.
A big part of that also due to the fact that there was such a supply, and then the customers changed for a lot of the motorcycle business, but considering they are 50% of the on-highway market in the U.S., 50%. There's no other motorcycle brand in a first world country that has that kind of share. And then when you're aging, you have an aging demographic, or they decide, hey, maybe I'm not going to get a new motorcycle. I'm going to keep the one I got in my garage. And then they decide, maybe I want a hot tub instead.
Yeah.
So to ail my bones or whatever the case may be, but that actually gave a real big supply of the used bikes. But you're right, this resurgence, people have come back and kind of almost rediscovered motorcycling. And the best part about it is the technology and the performance of motorcycling and the safety has continued to progress.
It's unreal.
Yeah, I hop on motorcycles now and I'm riding stuff and I'm like, wait, this has radar with dynamic cruise control and blind spot detection, and The cool thing, though, is that when I ride these motorcycles, even though they have all this tech, they still don't anesthetize the experience, because at the end of the day, you know, that's why you ride. You ride for that visceral feeling, for that emotional, that freedom that you get. I mean, I just did a ride this morning. I take my helmet off, and I swear, I just, like, I can't stop smiling every time I ride. And I'm happy to see that even though tech is ushered in, we're not finding ourselves in a situation where we've taken the joy of it out. But to your point about gas prices and all that, you know, I worked retail a long time ago, and I know you did as well in the motorcycling world. I remember those guys coming in, and it was almost like the ability for the cosigner. Oh, baby, it gets good gas mileage.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's that cosigner. Oh, yeah. But at the end of the day, I mean, like, anybody asks me what kind of gas mileage the bike gets, I'm like, I don't know, man.
I don't know either.
It's about miles per mile.
Yeah.
That's what I measure. You know, how much do I enjoy what I'm doing? And yeah, okay, I put premium in it all the time. Yeah,
Only.
It's okay. I don't know how much it costs to fill it up, whatever. You just get on and ride. Like, it's not rational. Like, we start rationalizing it, and it becomes a scooter or becomes transportation, and how boring is that?
It's amazing what it did for me. Motorcycling over the years is me. It became me all the way as a kid. I remember this guy, Dominic Ercolini, and his name, I don't even know where the fuck he is. I barely even knew this guy as a neighbor. The reason I know his name is because he had a mini bike with the Briggs and Stratton engine, and we pulled it, and it was purple. He rattle canned it, and I rode it up the street and back. And I was like, oh my God, I got to have this. And he's all, I'll sell it to you, $13 or something, you know. And I gave him paper route money. The thing caught on fire. From there, I was hooked. I was into dirt bikes. I love Roger DeCoster. He was a champion riding for Suzuki. Couldn't afford a Suzuki RM 80, so I got some used Yamaha. The engine seized like 2 weeks in. The guy burned me. My mom felt bad. I saved money. She helped, and I got a Suzuki RM80. Wow. And from there, Yamaha RD400 two-stroke. Rode that thing with the fucking DG pipes and DG heads. And from there, you got the magical GPZ 550. That was the first year, the red. Oh my God, that was the shit. And then I got a Shovelhead 65 that I called the Fonz. And from then on, it was Harleys forever. And then, of course, BMW and Ducati come around. But the obvious reason I got into it was Evel Knievel and Outlaw Motorcycle Clubs.
Yep.
There's no other reason I got into motorcycles. It was like, wow. How about you?
The first memory that I have of motorcycling was Evel Knievel.
Exactly.
So I grew up in Las Vegas, Nevada.
Oh, there you go.
I mean, like, and knowing of him doing the Caesar stunts, the jump, you know, and just eating it.
Yeah.
And, you know, you think as an impressionable kid, you see some guy that's basically being hauled away in an ambulance, and you're like, you should normally think, you know, in any other sense, oh, that's just really bad. I should never do that. That's horrible. Exact opposite. I'm like, badass. I got this is what I'm going to be into. But my mom and dad wouldn't let me ride, though.
Oh yeah,
like they were anti. So I had friends I grew up with, and you know, growing out in the desert, we would go watch the Mint 400 races. And I had friends, Scott Reed and his dad Phil Reed. They had their own a bunch of motorcycles. You know, the little thumb throttle ATC Honda 80s.
Yeah, the 3-wheeler ankle terrors.
Oh man,
we were just talking about those last night.
Oh, I smacked into a wall. That was my first accident. Powered accident was, you know, taking that thing around a corner, having it slide and just basically smack into a brick wall.
Yeah.
And I had to tell my parents that I crashed my BMX bike, you know, because I was all tore up. And they're like, what happened? Oh, I was out BMXing. And my mom and dad, they knew what was up.
How old are you?
50.
Oh, yeah. So you're the same. I'm 56. It's just BMX. BMX was also the entryway into goddamn fucking motorcycles. I mean,
especially dirt, you know, because it's that crossover right there.
It was so great.
And I had a crappy Schwinn Scrambler that I had polished, like put every cool component on it to make it good, you know, but I still was dealing with this not junky. It was a very fundamental, basic, heavy frame.
Right.
Everyone had PK Rippers and SE, you know, all these really cool bikes, mongooses, and I had the component bike.
Yeah.
Remember my dad got it for me. It had not even the tubular forks. It was those like flat pressed
Yeah,
forks.
the flat ones. I got a picture of it right here. You want to see a funny photo?
Yeah.
Somebody just sent me this photo because I'm obsessed with, I had a Schwinn. I had this one, but it was white and it had the shifter.
Yeah, the shifter.
Yeah, the shifter with the small front wheel and drum brake.
But that is very similar to the Scrambler frame.
Same as the Scrambler. The Schwinn made one frame and then it had the flat forks.
Yeah.
And later Ashtabula ripped off those forks and just made them out of that black steel.
Yeah.
And they had cranks and everything.
Well, that was my. It's funny you said that. That is BMX was my foray into that.
Yeah.
And with that heavy frame and mongoose forks, gooseneck, upgraded every little thing I could on that bike. Then once you ride something that's powered,
oh yeah,
you're like, oh, it's game over now. Like this is what I'm getting into.
Yeah. So
once again, my parents wouldn't let me, so I had to sneak around to go do stuff like this. And the thing that I would do all the time is my grandmother had a Sachs Foxy GT moped.
Oh wow!
And this was like a moped that you had to,
I had one of those.
You had a pedal to get it to start.
Pook.
Yeah, actually, I think it was Pook that actually made the Foxy GT, not Sachs. Pook. And I would take that thing out into the desert, and people would just dump stuff, and there were piles of dirt everywhere, and kids would make BMX tracks out of all this stuff. And I would take that thing with these, ribbed street tires, no real suspension, and I'd motocross.
Yeah.
This crappy little scooter.
The moped. The moped was fucking the first real sense of freedom because there was this weird gray area for a little while where they weren't sure if you should have a license or not. And they really couldn't figure it out. And all of a sudden the streets were covered with mopeds and you didn't even need a helmet or whatever. And I would just ride it everywhere. And then one day they said, nah, you got to have a license. And I was like,
Part about that's nice about Nevada. They're dealing with other things.
Yeah.
So like an 11-year-old riding around on a moped on city streets, no one's really paying attention.
Right.
So I did that for a long time, and my parents, I kept on saying, I'm interested. I'd like a bike. And they would say, no. When I hit 16, I got my first car, Volkswagen Squareback.
Oh, awesome car.
Still to this day, man, if I find a mint one, but I don't have to do anything to it, I want it.
That's such a great ride. That's such an underrated ride, too.
Yeah.
The Squareback, it's the ultimate band machine because you could put your gear in it. It got great gas mileage. It was slow as fuck.
Especially up here in Colorado at elevation, man.
Elevation, you got to get out and fuck with the carbs and shit. There was no fuel injection. So that was always wild. But the Squareback is very underrated.
That was my car because I wasn't allowed to get a motorcycle. And then I seized the motor on it because I let it run out of oil or something stupid, at a 17-year-old. Paid $750 for the car. And I drove it from Colorado to Las Vegas and back. And I drove this thing everywhere, let it run out of oil because I wasn't checking it because, the dipstick's in the back and you kind of forget about it. And I forgot. That's one of those cars you have to check every week. Yeah. Because it might be burning oil.
Burning oil.
And so then I had a little bit of money left, and I went and bought a Honda Passport.
Oh, wow.
A little Passport 50 scooter, one of the ones you see zipping all over China. Yeah. So big wheels on that. Had a blast on one summer on that thing, and that was the last time I had a motorcycle. And then I joined the Army. They wouldn't let me have a motorcycle in the Army. At that time, I was stationed in Germany and lived over there for a couple years. But I was dating the girl who her friend had a Kawasaki 440 LTD. And she's like, hey, come out, let's go ride this new motorcycle I bought. And then I hopped on that motorcycle. It'd been 2 years since I've ridden. And all of a sudden I'm like, oh, well, this has been missing from my life.
Yeah.
You get back on it and you're like, why did I ever stop riding? Even the scooters, even the ATVs, anything or the mopeds. It's just that feeling of motion. And I rode that and I'm like, as soon as I get back to the States, I'm buying a bike.
Yeah.
And Honda XL 250 Enduro. Moved back here to Colorado, bought one for $250 on the Thrifty Nickel. Yeah. When that was a thing, that was the
a newspaper?
Yeah.
Like a
actual print newspaper.
Yeah.
I sound old even saying that, but
yeah. Kind of like the Trader, or what was that thing called in LA? The Recycler.
Yeah. We had the thrifty nickel out
Everybody, every town had some shitty
here.
thing.
Yeah,
You know,
$8.
especially-
You paid by the word or something
Yeah.
to put the thing in there.
Something like serial killers use to catch people. Like, hey, I'm selling a lawnmower. You go over and the guy's missing. You know?
It's here in my basement.
Yeah.
So I had that for a little while and crashed that, totaled the front end, and then I decided I was going to start wearing a helmet.
Right.
I think I was 21 years old, and I'm like, I think I'm going to start wearing a helmet now because after that accident, I'm like, I can't.
And this pre-helmet law?
But yeah, there's no helmet law in Colorado. Which
Still,
is
right?
Still amazing to me. Yeah.
Yeah, that's crazy. I saw a guy today. Dude, I got to show you this photo. He's fucking riding a street glide on the highway, no helmet, no shirt. What a fucking idiot.
Everybody has an opinion.
Right.
I have mine.
Right.
The only thing I look at is and this is one thing I like about it out here is that people, they don't care what you do as long as you don't, do your own thing.
Yeah.
Problem is people get in accidents with no helmets. What do you think does to everybody else's insurance?
Yeah.
All of us that actually wear all the gear. So it does affect us.
Well,
sadly.
also, man, do whatever you want to do. Ride with no helmet or whatever. I don't care what you do. But I'll tell you this. When you go down on the highway, look, I got scars all over me, When you go down on the highway, I can't even describe to you, you want to die. Because if you live the amount of pain that you're in for a long time, it makes me think about Evel Knievel. Like, yeah, he was a badass, but holy shit, he had to have screws missing because you go down on the highway, that's asphalt.
Yeah.
And you think rug burns are bad? You can't even fathom what road rash feels like.
It's hot sandpaper, man.
Yeah. I was telling a guy yesterday,
Yeah.
It's like someone set you on fire for a couple weeks. You're just laying in your bed on fire.
Yeah. I've had my fair share of road rash. My motto is all the gear all the time.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
And the gear, you don't have to look like a Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle these days. You
Nope.
don't have to. You can.
They got great gear now.
great gear. You can actually look good.
They got like denim. I had this lady on, and it's like Japanese selvage denim.
Yeah.
It's got the Kevlar in it.
Kevlar lined armor.
Unbelievable.
So I was in a pretty bad accident 2 years ago, almost 2 years ago, and
Out here?
actually right outside of Monterey.
Oh,
I was
wow.
leaving Laguna Seca, heading bound down to Monterey after a race weekend for Moto America.
Yeah.
And our guy just raced and won. I'm on cloud 9, going down the little 2-lane road between Laguna Seca and the town of Monterey. Going down the road, have 5-6 car lengths in front of me, not speeding, sincerely, not speeding. Probably one of the few times, honestly, that I'm not 5
Right.
to 10 over. But I had a good day, didn't want to blow it, just cruising down the road. And I see 2 dudes coming up on motorcycles and Harleys. I'm not a snob, man. I wave at anybody, everybody. Maybe not the Can-Am 3-wheeled things.
Right, yeah.
But,
I don't get into
that's
that
a snowmobile.
spider stuff. Yeah,
No,
yeah.
I'm sorry. It's
That's
not,
a
it's not
jet ski
motorcycle.
out on
Yes,
land. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But I'll wave at any other motorcyclist.
Same here.
Even scooters. So they're coming the other direction, and I waved at these dudes, and I put my head forward. And then the next thing you know, I see this pickup truck out of the corner of my eye, and
Yeah.
people jumping up and down, yelling, "Screw Biden!" And a big Trump 2020
Screw Biden.
Screw Biden, a
Whoa.
Trump 2020 banner flying, and it was like a Trump parade.
Yeah.
And so I turn and I look, and I know this. You don't just get distracted and pay it. So I look, and I'm like, what? Oh, it's elections coming up in a couple weeks. It was October 25th, So I turned my head forward. All the cars in front of me had stopped and rubbernecked. Did the same thing I did.
Yeah.
Except for they slowed down.
Yeah.
I didn't.
Wow.
So I hit the back of the car.
Damn.
Flew over the back of the car, broke both my arms, my pelvis, rib, a couple other things. But I was wearing everything.
Right.
Helmet, jacket, boots, gloves, armor, back protector. And I think about that accident, and I got pretty messed up. I was out for a while.
Yeah.
And I'm still got a little bit going on, but mostly I'm doing good. If I wasn't wearing that gear, dude,
Done.
I'd be dead.
Oh, yeah,
I'd be
totally.
dead.
Totally.
And I wasn't even doing anything wild. I think some of the crazy things I've done off-road or on a track or whatever.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking, man, if I was out there in shorts and a T-shirt with no helmet,
Fucking crazy.
some slip-on Vans,
Yeah.
which I see all the time.
Oh, I see guys in thongs. I saw a TikTok video that I almost vomited.
Yeah.
It said, "Hey people, riding in thongs. That's the asphalt. And the guy's toes were gone. His toes were gone. In one scene, you see he's riding, with thongs. And the next scene, he has no toes.
I thought you were talking about a different thong, but
oh yeah, right.
I've seen those too.
Yeah.
That's like South Beach.
Well, yeah,
that's Miami when
yeah.
When you got somebody on the back leaned over too far. But yes,
it's funny too when the helmet law kicked in California. I think it was really a way of people to stop riding. They wanted to stop riding, but didn't want to get clowned by their friends. So they were like, "Yeah, you took my freedom. I don't ride with a helmet. You don't tell me what to do." And I'm like, AIDS hit. You put on condoms.
Yeah.
Hopefully you did.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's like, you're going to ride if you're going to ride.
Yeah, I mean, I have friends that I go riding with, and when they come to Colorado, they're like, "Oh, yes." And they pull their helmet off. Yeah. And there's a little bit inside me that I'm just like, I want to say something, but
whatever, man. Yeah.
Yeah, it's your life.
And the helmets are so good now. Oh my God.
I mean, I see you got a Ruby bag there. I mean,
Ruby helmet's killer, I'm
an Arai guy.
I ride only Arai.
Yep.
I had the bright kind of fluorescent yellow one.
Yep.
It's the only helmet I ride with to this day.
It's funny you say that. My helmet is a Ducati branded Arai.
Right.
But it's got this kind of fluorescent orangish red, same sort of thing. It's like, I want to be seen.
Totally. Yeah.
And in fact, these days when I ride, I don't commute on a bike. I mean, even when I'm out in the Bay Area, I'm not a big fan of commuting on a bike. But I ride to escape. I ride to just get away. I'll go do like a 400-mile loop my dad and I met on Father's Day. We just did a 400-mile loop through the Colorado Rockies.
That's funny you say that because I rode out of necessity in LA and starting comedy. I couldn't miss spots because of traffic. I was new.
Perfect.
I had to get there. Also, I could do way more spots than anybody because they'd be like, "Hey, Jimmy's stuck in traffic. You want to go on?" I'd be like, "Oh, yeah, fuck yeah."
So you're there with...
Right, and then I would go to the next spot and the next spot. I could split lanes. I could pull right up on the sidewalk, park, walk in, and go on. I had rode like that for 12 years. I was doing shows in Denver about 4 years ago, and my buddy Rick out there is a DJ on the radio, and does the broadcast for the Broncos.
Okay.
So he says, "Hey, man, come over to the house. I got some bikes, and we'll go riding." And, of course, I've rode to Sturgis many, many times, and I've done all the cool riding, Yosemite and, up to Vancouver and across country. But I hadn't rode like that in about 10 years. So we get on the bikes and we go out to Red Rocks and we're riding, and I was like, man, this is riding. What I'm doing is necessity, but that was riding.
Yeah, it's funny you say that. There are many years I rode the way that you riding around as transportation. I was a struggling kid, like trying to make a living and playing in a band, and I had a Kawasaki KZ750 was my wheels around for 10 years.
Yeah.
And that, man, I rode that stuff. I rode that bike in the winter. People were like, "How you getting home?" You just put 2 feet down and just let it slip and slide. And
I rode in sandstorms, heat waves, rain, snow. Yeah. Dude, I went over the Grapevine once and it was fucking so cold that I thought my hands were going to fucking fall off. And I was riding a Beamer at the time, a black ice thing came up. They have a black ice meter on my screen. And I was like, oh no.
That's never good.
Yeah, that's not good. I was like, oh shit. And then you get all stiff. You're just like, because you don't want to put any movement because the bike will just zzz. But I hear you, man.
Yeah.
I rode 20 something years. I didn't have a car.
Wow.
No car, dude. Ever.
Yeah. I think I did like 9 years with no car.
Yeah. There's one day where you just tap out. The first time I tapped out, I was going over the Bay Bridge in San Fran, and it was pouring rain, and I rode right home into the garage, and I bought a Cadillac, a 68 Eldorado. I was like, nope, I'm done.
One of those Bay Area atmospheric rivers.
Yep. Oh, man.
I've ridden many of those.
I was like, that's it. It's just one day, like, I'm an idiot. Fuck this, But I mean, riding... It was who I was. It was my identity. It was my life. I was always on a bike.
Yeah.
I've met some of my best friends in the world from motorcycles, and it was Harley for years, FXRs, Dynas, and all that pre-Sam Crow, Sons of Anarchy. But what really hit me was, and you were talking about it at the beginning of the podcast, when technology started to happen, I started looking elsewhere. There's just that group of people that are like, fucking American made only. And it's like, yeah, dude. Yeah, go ahead and say, But to me, no matter how long I rode, I would grab too much front brake if someone pulled out in front of me. I don't give a fuck who you are. You could test it. You could get a guy in some kind of simulator, and no matter what, you're going to grab all the brake when somebody comes out of nowhere. And once Jeep or ABS brakes started coming in to the fold, I was like, I got to find something. Let me try something else, So I started looking around, and Beamer, RTs and GSs. I fell in love with the GS.
Yeah.
And then here comes Ducati with the fucking Pikes Peak.
The Multistrada.
I had the first year of that.
Yeah.
So, I love all different bikes. How do you get into, because you played rock and stuff, but how do you get into working for Ducati?
So it's a kind of a non-traditional story, which is great because I was just a fan. And there was a point where I was touring in the band. I was traveling around the country, we put out records, and we're doing the thing. We're living our dream, right?
Right.
And when I say living the dream, I mean, there were good days and bad days.
Oh, yeah, I hear you.
As there is with anything you put your heart into, right? Even today.
Our stories are so similar, because I go from rock right into the motorcycle industry.
Yeah, so that's what it was. Ultimately, my band played out in South by Southwest. This was like 99 or something. We played at South by Southwest, and our record had just come out. We're on like a showcase, and we're so excited. We're like, yeah, we're going to go down there. And this is when South by Southwest was all music. Right. Just music only.
Yep.
And all my favorite bands were down there playing, and a lot of up and coming bands. And we were on a small record label based out of Colorado from the guys from the Descendants and All called Owned and Operated, and our label mates were there. And we played, and we basically played to the other bands.
Okay, I've been there.
You've been there?
I've been there. Yeah.
And we played. And
this is our big break.
Yeah, and we were also thinking, all ages too, because we can, we were like kind of had this thing of we got to have all ages show. No one was there. And so it was disheartening because we hauled ass to get down there. Our van broke on the way down there, so we had to rent a car in order to get down there. And then our drive back, because we all had jobs and had to get back to work, our drive back, it was my shift to drive. And, I was hauling ass in like southeastern Colorado doing like $110 in this rented Suburban, and I got pulled over.
Oh.
And I got a really good speeding ticket. I mean, like a speeding ticket that was next level. It was 12-pointer where you're
one of those felony speeding tickets.
You guys, you're going to jail, if I find anything that shouldn't be in the van.
Yeah.
And, they woke up all the dudes, and they went through the van, and we're not stupid. So there was nothing in the van, so we're good. But I got the ticket. And I kind of just broke my heart a little bit. And then we came back home, and then the whole band thing, we were working our butts off, and we were really committed to this. And we were like, let's take a hiatus for the summer. That was like the soft breakup. It's like we're getting divorced, but nobody wants to talk about it.
Yeah.
And so then I just was like, man, I got to figure out what I got to do for a living. So, because this is what I've been dreaming of doing. And I had a record store in town. I did all these other things that was hustling, doing sound gigs to make ends meet.
Yeah, you got 19 jobs just to play rock and roll.
That's exactly it. Yep. I was working to play rock, and I decided at one point, okay, I need to go figure out what I need to do for a career. And what are the two things I love? I love music and motorcycles.
Yeah.
So let me try out the motorcycle thing.
It's the same thing I did. It's so funny. It's like, what do I love? Motorcycles.
Yeah, I'll give it a shot. Yeah. And then I was thinking, man, all this stuff that I learned being an entrepreneur from owning my own businesses, and I wouldn't say managing the band, but partially managing the band, booking tours and all this stuff. I went down to my local motorcycle dealership, and I talked to the guy down there. His name is Matthew Peters. Used to be like a Volkswagen salesman and kind of fell into owning the dealership. And I was like, hey, Matthew, I buy my parts from him, from an old motorcycle I had. And it's like, hey, I'm kind of interested in this business. I'd like to work for either BMW, Ducati. And he's just like, well, my parts manager's leaving to join the Navy. I'll hire you at $650 an hour. And I'm like, okay.
Yeah.
So I went in there and just started slinging parts.
That's like me. I needed health care. Yeah. And the guy goes, just work 3 days a week, and I'll give you health care. My buddy, right? He's running the place. I go, all right. and fucking quickly just became a fucking monster salesman. And 3 days a week becomes 6 days a week because you're just like, oh, I got a guy coming in today. I got to go in, you know. But yeah.
Well, it's probably you. My guess is you fell into the same thing. Like people get into motorcycling because they love it, right?
Right.
But then people don't realize that there's also an opportunity to make a living. Like you can do well. Some people just want to be in it, and they don't give it that extra push.
Well, there's people that don't even like motorcycles working in the industry.
Yeah,
those people suck.
Yeah, like, dude, go do something else.
Yeah, go do something else, man.
Don't bring that.
That energy is weird because they're just I'm like, hey, man, this guy, get over here. This guy wants to buy some fucking, that fucking Billy, old rich fucking Billy. Just they're angry at rich people.
Yeah.
They're angry at successful people. They're angry at people that have passion, you know, because they're over there just fucking failed in life. And you're like, oh, God, I got this piece of shit over here. That's a weird scene to be around because motorcycle dealers are festive.
Oh, yeah,
they're festive, man. People are in there. They're like, dude, I just rode in from Portland. It was crazy. I dodged a deer.
You should walk in there and like everyone should be like stoked to see you.
Oh, yeah. We're all weirdos on two wheels.
Yeah, and it's our tribe, right? I mean, that's totally how I look at it. I look at motorcycling like I don't care what anybody rides. If it's two wheels, it's part of the tribe because we're all wired somehow in order to be able to accept the fact that we know what we're doing.
Yeah.
I mean, post-accident, I remember sitting in the emergency room, and of course, like all the emergency room doctors are all like motorcyclists. They're all adrenaline junkies.
Oh, yeah.
But all the nurses are like, oh, are you still going to ride? Oh, yeah. I'm like, what do you mean? It is how I'm wired. It is not a choice. Unless you tell me physically I can't do it, then I'm going to find a way. Anyway,
yeah.
I'm getting back on the bike as soon as I get an all clear, maybe sooner.
Yeah.
So anyway, I started slinging parts at the motorcycle dealership, and I took like every catalog home and I studied everything, and I was like just like music, you know, like listening to every record, reading the liner notes, who produced this, what studio was it at?
Right.
I'm like, man, I just applied the same methodology to the world of motorcycling.
Rabbit hole shit.
It is.
Rabbit hole shit. I love it.
And then I got people from all over Colorado coming in going, hey, so can you find me flat slide carbs for a 907 Paso? I want to make it a carb, for a 750 Paso.
Yeah.
You know, because the carbs that came on it were crap. Can you do? And so I'm like, oh, I'll find out. And then I'll dig into this, and then we started to develop a reputation in Colorado where if you were a motorcyclist, this is where you came.
Right.
Because we were all.
And what year are we talking?
Talking like 2000.
So that's, you know, it's interesting to think back on the history of Ducati because Ducati to me was like such a boutique motorcycle. You know, it was really, you know, they weren't mass produced. Mm-hmm. They're kind of like Ferrari. You know, they were really, you had to know how to tinker on them. You had to do those valve jobs on them every like 20,000. You pull the whole bike apart, do a valve adjustment.
Dude, valve inspections were 6,000.
It was insane.
6,000.
I never owned them because of that. And I always loved them. I love that dry clutch.
Yeah.
Pulls up, just, you know, and the dude, you know, the Ducati rider was a different rider. The Beamer rider was a different human, and the Harley guy was a different human. Those three were totally, you could pick them out. If you look at you and I right now, you wouldn't think that we love Ducati, you know, but when Ducati started, I don't know how they did it, but when they started to get fucking great, it changed the game because there were no more of those valve adjustments, you know?
I mean, listen, the new Multistrada V4, which is in my driveway right now.
It's the Unreal motor.
36,000 miles between valve inspections.
Yeah.
There's no motorcycle that has that even in the industry. So we went from being, still unfortunately have a bit of that perception, being the high maintenance motorcycle,
right,
to being the motorcycle where you're just getting on and riding it. Like, that's what I love about it. Like, I appreciate that people want to tinker, but man, I just want to ride.
Oh yeah,
a couple bolt-ons here and there, you know. But let's go. Let's go ride. I don't want to have to work on it all the time.
I fucking love the Paul Smart. You know what I mean? I mean, goddamn, that's the most beautiful motorcycle ever made. I don't care what anybody says.
I had the little sister of it, the Sport 1000, which was the non-fared version of it.
Yeah,
sexy bikes, fun-ish to ride. They look better parked in your living room, quite
Yeah, they
candidly.
do. They do.
Like, 'cause they're absolutely beautiful. But I rode mine a couple times, and every time I rode it, I was like, I think I'm just going to park it and look at it.
Yeah.
Which is okay too. Like motorcycle porn is a thing. You can,
yeah.
You can just sit there
Are
and
you kidding me?
I could put that thing in my living room and be happy. But when you're talking about the used market, the whole Sport Classic series.
Yeah. Through the roof.
No, I mean, that bike, the Paul Smarts were 15 grand. They're selling for 30 plus.
Yeah.
Now.
Let me ask you something. When you started at Ducati, did you dive down the rabbit hole? Because I really don't know the history of how it started, how old they are or anything.
Yeah.
How old is Ducati and who started it and how did that happen?
So 1926 was the year that Ducati started. And Ducati started, and it wasn't really Ducati, it was these brothers that basically were building electronics. So you think about like radios and razors and cameras,
out in Italy?
Of things out in Italy, in the area right outside of Bologna called Borgo Panigale, which basically Borgo is Berg neighborhood, and Panigale is the name of the area, which is the name of one of our bikes.
One of the best bikes ever made.
Basically, they were doing a lot of, let's call it electronics at that time. It's a kind of an overarching statement, but lots of stuff. Come World War II, the factory was actually bombed by the Allied.
Wow.
And there's a great picture in the museum. It was called Operation Pancake. I mean, how cool of a name. But
wow.
There's pictures of the bomb bay doors open.
Yeah.
And I'm not sure what kind of bomber it was. Let's call it a B-52 because that sounds good.
Right.
And
that is the bomber we know.
Yeah, it's the bomber.
Yeah.
Literally bombs going through the roof of the factory. So some American took the picture. I know the gentleman who's a historian at the factory, and he tracked down the guy to get the photo of it being bombed. So fast forward to post-World War II, basically they're looking for a way to get the business going back up. And I'm missing a lot of details.
No, that's cool.
Long story short, an engine was invented called a cucciolo, which basically is Italian for puppy. And if you think about the American version of that, it's the Whizzer. It's like a little 50cc 4-stroke motor that can bolt to a bicycle with a gas tank on it. And that was the first Ducati.
Wow.
Like motorcycle-ish.
Is it Ducati a family name?
Yes, it's a family. There were the brothers that were part of this. And so you would bolt that to a bicycle, and then they went from doing just bolting these engines to bicycles to actually making the bicycle with everything together. That became a motorcycle, because now you've actually got a motorcycle. And any self-respecting Italian company, you got to figure out how to go fast with it. So they're hot rodding, they're making it faster, making it handle better. And then they're, that innate passion for motorcycling and speed and performance and all of that. And of course, sexy.
Yeah.
And from the classic bikes all the way, some of the most beautiful motorcycles.
Yeah, if you're obsessed with design like me, you just see it and just go oh my God,
Exactly. In fact, it's one of the things when I came back to Ducati 7 years ago, I remember us doing some of the motorcycle events, like the IMSs and such, and I was talking to my marketing manager at the time, and, he wants to put some cute girl in a slinky dress next to the bike, and not only... I'm like, dude, we've got the most beautiful bikes in the world.
Yeah.
Give me somebody that can stand next to the motorcycle that can talk motorcycles.
Yep.
I don't need to compete because she's going to lose.
Yeah.
Or he's going to lose. The bike is beautiful enough. So anyway, that's basically how Ducati got into the world of motorcycling. So, 1926 to today, getting ready pretty soon to celebrate our 100th, which would be pretty amazing. We just did our 90th and 100's coming around the corner. You think about where the brand has come, and you talk about those, the fact that in the past it had this kind of, let's say, quirky, nostalgic, for only the hardcore. But man, I think about it if you go to a good restaurant and you have a great experience, you want to tell people, right?
Oh yeah.
And so I think of that when I ride a Ducati. I'm like, man, I love this bike. It's so fun. I want other people to be able to experience this. I'm not that guy that's like, oh, screw that band, they're sold out. I'm not going to listen to them anymore because they're popular. No, I'm stoked for them. And that's the way I feel about the Ducati motorcycles. And, if we can make bikes that, as long as we don't lose our identity and our soul, and we keep that, which is we have to be authentic to and true to ourselves, and we can become incredibly reliable. We can add technology and safety to make it better for the rider. Why not?
Yeah.
And why not? Because I trust our engineers and our designers to do the right thing for those things. And I've known these guys for years, And I know that they're just as irrationally passionate about motorcycling as I am and as our customers are. And I think that's the magic that keeps things going at Ducati.
It was really weird too, like with Ducati. It was almost like Husqvarna and these weird brands. They were almost like, where do you buy a Ducati? You know, there wasn't like actual dealership. It would be just kind of like lawnmowers, Ducati, and something else, and it would just be a couple dudes in there that were totally, maybe they moved over here from Italy and they sell Ducatis, and one guy in the back works on them. It was really, really small world. And then Ducati, somewhere along the way, now I'm not quite sure if it's when Audi buys them or something happened, because I bought the AMG Diavel.
Oh yeah.
So right around that time, actual dealerships, like bigger, really cool dealerships were happening, and the word was kind of getting out. They had the Panigale, the Desmo being the best bike ever fucking made. You know, the Marlboro one. Oh my God, I rode that thing, man. My ass was on fire. Like, the bike was so hot and the seat was so thin, but it was a race bike, you know?
Basically, that was a bike that, you know, should it have ever come to the street? It doesn't matter.
Right.
It did.
It did. When I rode it, I was like, oh my God, I want one of these so bad. And I'm never going to ride it. It was so hard to ride, uncomfortable, and it's a race bike.
And when you hand the keys back and you feel like, I dodged a bullet.
Yeah.
Yep. Because it's an insane feeling riding that bike.
But, there was this time in San Francisco where the Monster really dominated the motorcycle world.
Oh, yeah.
Everyone rode the Ducati Monster, the fucking stripped down looking road warrior bike.
Especially the murdered out Matte Black.
That's it.
There was a sales guy at Monroe Motors.
Yeah.
His name was Rory, if I remember correctly. And I remember one year he won the award for, top, I think he sold over 100 Monsters. And you think about that, like, he was almost single-handedly responsible for, like, this crazy monster, I don't want to say mania, that sounds so obvious, but, this monster proliferation all over San Francisco, where it's like, that's the bike to have.
Yeah.
And it's cool because when I'm in the city now, you see those old, like,
they're around.
Like early 2000 ones, and they're kind of clapped out a little bit.
They've been bike messaged the fuck out of.
They always have the monster, the old steel gas tank dent, because they dropped it and the handlebar smashed.
I had it right there. Yeah. All of them got that.
Yeah, you see that, you're like, okay, that's a proper city bike. That and missing, a bent shift lever or something.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, the city, there are dealers that helped us establish ourselves like that, because Monroe Motors in San Francisco, Pro Italia in Los Angeles, those guys have been around forever. I have great respect for them carrying the flag for so long.
Yeah.
And they are genuinely crazy motorcyclists still.
Oh yeah.
Run those places.
Monroe was fantastic. I didn't have a good experience at Pro Italia, but Monroe was great. There was a problem in the world of motorcycle where emissions were killing motorcycles. So Harley, not so much Beamer, but Ducati, they would get here and they couldn't keep them running because they had to run so rich to pass the emissions. And I bought the very first Multistrada, just the plain red one. Mm-hmm. And I was riding to Redwood Run. I'm going to go up to the Harley Davidson run on my new Multistrada. And it would just shut off on the freeway. It was the scariest thing ever. Wow. And I went to Monroe and they go, we're not open. It's Sunday, but we're going to come down there and we'll open it up and we'll try some different downloads. And I had a lot of problems with that bike, and I had a lot of problems with some of the Screaming Eagle Harleys because they just couldn't run under California emissions.
Yeah.
Eventually they figured it out, but I had a lot of problems with that, and I had to lemon law that Multistrada, and I was so bummed. It would just stop, dude, on the fucking freeway.
No, dude, I get it. I mean, like, unfortunately, you find yourself in a situation, you're absolutely right, where you run into these, whether it be emissions or whatever.
Yeah.
But the good thing is that fueling and all of that, I mean, we talk about the reliability of the motorcycles today.
Unreal.
I hop on any of our bikes anywhere in the world, and I'll go as long as I can. I mean, Pikes Peak Multistrada, that was my baby.
Oh my God.
That was actually my project. I did the very first Pikes Peak race.
I got the first Pikes Peak when it came out.
I literally sold mine a year ago.
Oh,
I had
man.
the first year of it as well.
So they got a different motor now, if you're listening, people. Yeah. And the motor they have now is the one that was in their race bike, which is unreal. This motor, I just told my buddy yesterday at the show last night that I had to sell mine, because what was happening was this bike, after the first one, they guaranteed me, they said, look, they fixed all that. Mm-hmm. And I go, I love Ducati. I love this platform. I believe in it. I want to get it. I'll get another one. I would ride this bike almost so crazy that I knew I had to get rid of it. I rode it for a couple years, but there were times where I'm just doing like 95 splitting lanes because it rode so good. I was like, what am I doing? This is crazy shit, because it rode that fucking good and it looked amazing. Pikes Peak, the history of Pikes Peak. No one had it. I was riding around there like, well, Pikes Peak, Yeah. What a fucking machine. And the new motor and Pikes Peak is unbelievable.
Yeah, that new motor is the V4 versus the twin that you had.
Right.
And it's funny you say that about the twin. My experience with the twin, same thing. It makes you want to rev it.
It does. It's just...
Yeah, at like 90, you're just starting to feel like, okay, I'm getting comfortable.
It's crazy, right?
At 90.
I can't believe that engine, actually. Yeah. The way that it fucking screams, it's like... And the bike is not even fucking... I came off like 70s, 80s Harleys where you got wobble... and you got vibration.
And you're at 5,000 RPM and you think it's going to blow up.
Yeah, and shit's falling off it, mirrors and everything. Yeah. So to start getting into Ducati, and this is when I really became obsessed with Ducati, there was the giant rear tire chopper phase. Mm-hmm. And those are what I would call the unridables. You could ride them straight, but you couldn't ride them in a turn. They would not turn. They had the big 300 tire. They were ridiculous. 280, 300. Somehow, and this is when I knew Ducati was going next level in technology and R&D. They made the Diavel, and they had a 280 back tire on it. And this fucking thing, you could lean it all the way over in a turn. And that's when I became obsessed with Ducati. I go, this is it. They're going the next level.
It's a combination. I could tell you the story because I was there when we were in the development and the launch of that motorcycle. This is why it's really good for us to have a partner like Pirelli.
Right.
Because
the tire,
man. Of course, we have engineers that work with the engineers at Pirelli, and they design and develop a tire that can actually do that. I have more fun on the Diavel whipping that thing around with that tire, and then you get off and you're like, oh man, there's no chicken strips on this tire.
Yeah, you can't even believe it. You can't even believe where you see how far you got it over.
Yeah, you're like, this is living. And it's so fun and flickable.
Yeah.
You don't have to force it. Okay, it's not as easy as, let's say, a simple like a 190 or something.
Of course.
But it's fun to be able to flick that thing around. And it looks badass. You've got that big, meaty rear tire. Yeah. A big part of it had to do with a lot of times when they make those big rear tires, they're maybe not designed to develop properly to fit the rim. And so the profile of it isn't great. And so it's kind of almost square or flat.
Right. It's like a shelf.
Exactly.
You try to get it over and then it fucking drops.
Then it tips. Exactly.
Holy shit, yeah.
The tires were so beautifully profiled. I mean, they profiled them off of a MotoGP tire. Yeah. So you throw that thing into a corner and it just rolls as it should. And
I did thousands of miles on that. Thousands. Yeah. And then... so Audi buys Ducati and then sells it later, right?
No, we're still part of the Ducati
really?
family, yeah.
Oh, wait a minute. Mercedes owned it, right?
No, so Mercedes...
Why did the AMG get killed?
So AMG was actually an opportunity, it was a cross-marketing opportunity.
Yeah.
There was a really cool guy over at AMG who was a motorcycle nut, guy named Mario Spitzner, and he was the marketing guy for AMG. But he was also a motorcycle fan and loved Ducati. And so he came up with this idea of like, hey, let's work together and do some cross-marketing because, Mercedes isn't always thought of as the most sporty brand, even though there's some cool AMG stuff that's out there. And Ducati back at that time was still dealing with a little bit of its old reputation in terms of this concept of being unreliable. So, hey, this is a cool partnership. So it was really a marketing partnership. In fact, that AMG bike, we showed it at the LA Auto Show and had Nikki Hayden do a Smoky Burnout on the stage in the AMG booth.
Yeah, yeah.
And like it blew everybody's mind because there's all these car dudes that are there that were like,
That's when I saw it. I was like, I must own that bike.
yeah, it was a cool bike. I mean, white frame. White frame, really
Carbon
cool.
fiber.
And
gray.
the wheels were designed out of the AMG wheels.
Oh my God. And I'll tell you what, I rode it for a couple years and sold it for crazy money to some dude in Vegas. Crazy money.
That makes me happy to hear.
Oh yeah. I mean, I miss that bike actually.
It was a cool bike. Well,
yeah.
The next year, we were still independently owned at that time by a private equity firm and the Bonomi family.
That's what happens. Then Audi buys
And then
you.
Audi, Volkswagen Group decided to buy Ducati.
Right.
And, I can't say one way or the other if the AMG thing had anything to do with it, but I guarantee you that raised our profile in the automotive world, not just to be this boutique motorcycle manufacturer, but somebody that was actually had some muscle and garnered attention and interest, not just from the motorcycle guys. So we were purchased then, and we've been part of the group. And I remember something, of course, everyone's always wondering, well, what's going to happen? Actually, they said very early on, we're going to let Ducati remain Ducati.
They own Lamborghini also, right?
Yeah, they own Lamborghini.
Right. Yeah, they did the same thing with Lamborghini.
Exactly.
Just do whatever you want.
Yeah, I mean, I spent 3 years at Lamborghini as well. I did like Ducati, Lamborghini, and then came back to Ducati because I'm a motorcycle guy, man. And Lamborghini was fun. I learned a lot, but it's motorcycles.
So what do you do for the company? You're the CEO of North America. Do you look over the dealerships? Do you look over how R&D, new bikes? What do you do?
So our official recognition, I guess, in North America is called the National Sales Company. So as a national sales company, and we're responsible for U.S., Canada, and Mexico, and we have, let's say, starting with the marketing. So it's the marketing, the positioning, the communications. A lot of times we take stuff from Italy, but we Americanize it or we do our own thing so that we can speak the same language to American motorcyclists. So we do the marketing and then the sales. And so we have a dealer network between the three markets, around 170 dealers between US, Canada, and Mexico. We oversee the dealer network that they're all independently owned, but we give them support and so on. And then we help manage the sales through them of the motorcycles, apparel, accessories, the spare parts, the service, warranty, etc. And then we have the service side of the business, which is taking care of the customers, taking care of the dealers, and whether it be warranty, in your situation as well, you had obviously work with a customer service team.
I'm sure my name's in that system there.
I'm going back to look.
Yeah, you can look it up, man.
Hey guys, can you give me a Dean Del Rey?
Yeah. It was weird too because the dealer actually kind of just disowned me after that. And I was like, hey man, I've bought like around 100 motorcycles. One time I said that, a guy said, you're so full of shit, man. Then I just started naming them all to the dude over the years, like, here you go, dude. It really was a bummer. But other than that, I just switched dealers. I just went to a different dealer. That's all I had to do. Yeah. But I never had a problem ever with the actual motorcycles ever again. And from there, they just kept getting better and better. And you just said something that I wanted to comment on. Not only were the bikes getting better, but their fucking apparel was so amazing. Like their jackets, all their gloves and the boot, everything they had was just really hip. Like Italians like to look great.
Of course.
And I like to look great. I don't like to look like just the, Walmart biker.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So they were killing it on that side too.
Yeah, and it's actually a really important part of our business when I look at the revenues that come from that, because I'm also responsible for all the financial part of the business. So I've got to oversee, basically what our budget planning and how we're tracking on budget. And, because at the end of the day, we're still a business. We got to be an operating business that's successful so that we can continue to reinvest. But the apparel and accessories is such an important part of what we do. And it's cool is that we have really good partners, so we're always innovating with really good stuff. I mean, for example, we have an airbag vest.
Oh, I saw that.
And when I'm riding a motorcycle, it's only for street, but when I'm on the street, I have that thing on because it's the equivalent of 7 back protectors. Like, why would you not wear it?
Yeah, it's cool.
Why would you not? So it's a great part of our business that our dealers love, customers love. And it's kind of cool because not everybody wants to be fully branded.
Right.
We have a lot of stuff that's subtly branded. It's black on black. That's kind of my style as well. The bike says enough.
Oh yeah.
The bike's already loud enough as it is.
So you're in parts You're out in Colorado. You've quit rock and roll. Now you're doing parts. How do you go from parts to CEO of Ducati? How does that happen?
So I'll try and go through it as quick as I can. I had an opportunity from another motorcycle company that was recruiting me that said, hey, come work for us. And I called up the gentleman who was the then CEO at Ducati North America, and I said, hey, can you tell me about this company or what's going on? And he's like, where are you going? And I said, well, there's an opportunity, and retail as much as I do well.
Yeah, you're
here.
making $650.
Yeah, I was doing a little bit better
I know,
than that,
but
but not
still.
much, man.
Yeah.
And I had bigger ambitions, and I was like, hey, I always wanted to work for a manufacturer, and I wanted to give it a shot. I knew I wanted to just see what the next step was, and he's like, come work for us. He's like, I got a job for you in the Midwest, and he's like, you're going to need to move to the Midwest. You okay with that? And I'm like, dude, you have me at hello.
Yeah.
I'm like, I remember going in for the interview, and I think we spent like 2 hours talking about everything else but the job. It was more of like just getting to know each other, and
right.
like, could I work for this company and this guy? And so I hustled it in the Midwest for a couple years.
What year?
2003, 4.
So they're still in that old world of Ducati.
Still.
Pretty small still, right?
Very small. In fact, the company had just moved from New Jersey to California, and there was a lot of challenges, man. I mean, like a lot. I mean, I'm an understatement, but we moved the entire company, lost half of the office staff, changed computer systems. The product was okay. We didn't have a great selection of motorcycles at the time. We had a couple home runs and a couple just that were
Yeah.
And then today, I mean, so we had to manage that. We had to manage, like, everyone talks about the 999 and like wax poetic about the 999 Superbike today. But dude, back then, it was tough.
Yeah. Was it falling apart?
No, it was just, you go from the 916, 996, 998 from one of the most beautiful, iconic motorcycle designs ever.
Yeah.
Then you go to the 999, which was definitely a big departure, okay? I'm not going to share my opinion one way or the other about the aesthetics of it, but it just, there was not an evolution of design. It was a completely radical new design aesthetic. And, you killed the king.
Yeah.
And so it was like mechanically, physically, performance, handling, everything. It was significantly better motorcycle. But, that was an important lesson, I think, for us as Ducati, is that it's still got to be beautiful.
Oh,
it
God,
still has to be absolutely, you have to look at it and it has to be elegant and sexy. And, you want to, when you walk into the garage, you have to get a little weak in the knees and go, oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah. Like when you see a Panigale, man.
Oh, yeah.
It's just like, Bill Burr is one of my favorite friends, humans on the planet. Like he'll send me over once in a while photo and be like, man, that's all I'll just say. And I'll be like, I get it, dude.
Yeah. It's just something beautiful. Right?
It's just unreal, And I can't ride in that position because I'm just too old and, But I would own one of those forever, just like you said, like in the house. Like there's
just to walk in and look at it every day.
Yeah.
Well, so I did a couple years in the Midwest, and
where at?
I moved to Minneapolis.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, I was supposed to be Chicago, but I went to Minneapolis. I actually had some friends that lived there from my rock and roll days, and they lived there, and they were like, dude, Minneapolis is great. And I love Chicago. I was married at the time, and my wife got a job in Minneapolis, and I'm like, I'm traveling all the time anyway, so whatever.
Yeah, and it's cool there.
Yeah, Minneapolis is a great city.
Were you going to First Avenue and shit, seeing bands? Yeah.
I saw some great shows.
Land of the Replacements, man.
Oh, yeah. I saw a Gang of Four reunion. Like the full original Four guys get out there and bash it out in Minneapolis. It still resonates as one of like the best shows because I missed them obviously in the 70s.
Right.
But the fact that they got back together and they played there. Anyway, I digress.
Yeah.
Minneapolis a couple years, and then as the company is growing and we're getting things back on track in the U.S., there was an opportunity to move to our headquarters office, which was in Cupertino, California, literally in one of the first Apple buildings.
Wow.
Like outside of Jobs' garage in a Cupertino strip mall, office strip mall park, sort of thing. When we moved into there, and I became the sales director. And I did sales director, and then recession hit, and so we had to battle our way through that.
Oh yeah, Fannie Mae.
Yo, dude, that was a mess.
People are just leaving their bikes. Yeah, I don't want it anymore. Come get it.
Good thing for us is that we never played any of those like weird lending games.
Yeah.
And when the market dropped 50%, we dropped 30%.
Right.
So
because you weren't your own bank.
No, exactly.
Great.
And we weren't doing weird predatory lending and, revolving credit lending.
Of course.
And, there are guys out there at 19 years old getting GSXR 1000s for $99 a month.
I know, unreal.
And you're part of all of that. So, it was just
weird times.
Yeah. And
just
so
give anyone a loan.
They were throwing motorcycles at people, and we were a little more difficult still to get into from a loan perspective then, but I thank God that we didn't do that because, we didn't get hit as hard.
Right.
And, we have a customer base that maybe isn't worried so much. Maybe they still worried. Rich people lost money during that thing as well.
Yeah.
But we fought our way through that, so I absorbed the role as marketing director, and then we got network development. And I got to the point where I was doing all of these things. I had 3 jobs at once at one time, like sales director, marketing director, network development. And I kind of was like, man, where am I going?
Yeah.
And then my boss left at that time, and there was a vacancy. And I was thinking, maybe I'm the guy.
Yeah.
And I wasn't.
Oh.
And it's actually okay. In hindsight, at the moment, I was kind of like, oh, man.
Bullshit, I'm doing everything here.
They should have got me. But, looking back at it, it would have been a disaster. And I could look back now perfectly and see it. And so I was like, okay, they brought in a new gentleman, a guy I had worked with that was running Ducati France. He came over, and I helped him get things kind of established and going. And then I got a phone call from Lamborghini, and they said, hey, we want you to come and be the head of marketing for the Americas. And I was like, I'm not really too big of a car guy. But that's a pretty fun car. If I'm going to be in the car world, it could be fun. So and I dig the challenge. And, part of the opportunity also was to help change the perception because they were paving the way for the market of the Urus, the new SUV. And they wanted to just make sure that would be a car that would be a bit more, appreciated and accepted. And so I came in, did a couple years, 2.5, 3 years at Lamborghini. And then I was at the Geneva Auto Show. They had a Volkswagen group night, and my global CEO, who I've been friends with for years, a gentleman, Claudio Domenicali, who's an amazing guy. I mean, this guy started off as one of the 3 engineers at Ducati in the early 90s.
Wow.
Talk about a story of working your way through the company.
Wow.
So I bump into Claudio. Not really bump into him. I sought him out. Hey, Claudio, it's good to see you. Hey, how's Lamborghini? We were talking, and he's just like, so how are things going? I said, it's good. It's cars though.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I saw a twinkle in his eye, and he's like, well, there might be some changes on foot because the gentleman that had came over from France, when somebody comes over an expat, it's like 3 to 5 years.
Yeah.
5 years was coming up. And I said, hey, he's like, come give me a call. And so we talk a little bit. And then I put my hat in the ring for the position for North America, which, I'm thinking back, I'm like, this is what I've always wanted to do. Like if this could happen, and there was no guarantee. I mean, I went through the interview process. Of course, I knew the people, I knew the organization, I know how things work, I knew our dealer network, but I felt like I was ready for this challenge. And so I took it on, and then they gave me the opportunity, and I told my colleagues at Lamborghini, it's been great, thank you for the experience, but I got to go back to motorcycling. And it's funny, I used to get a lot of grief because whenever I was at an event, I'd have people say, dude, you got to stop talking about motorcycles.
Yeah.
A Lamborghini event, and some guy that has an old Murcielago or something's like, hey, I heard you used to work at Ducati. So we start talking bikes, and I would get in trouble every once in a while for it. I'm like, man, Leopard ain't going to change its spots.
Yeah.
Like, that's who I am. I'm sorry. So the opportunity came, and it was a dream come true, but it was a hard road. But I kind of always believed if I love what I do, I put my heart into it, and I'm honest and I'm straightforward and I treat people the way I want to be treated, it'll come around.
Totally.
Sometimes a little altruistic, and sometimes I'm sure as that people have exploited that kind of that it's almost the kind of old punk DIY ethic of doing to others, but I don't care. Even if it shoots me in the foot sometimes, that's not going to change because it served me well. So I've been in the role now. This is year 7. Dude, I love it. I absolutely love it.
That's got to be a great job, man.
It's a great job. I mean, there's the struggles that you expect, but the brand is a fun brand.
Oh my God.
It's real.
It's the history, the soul.
And it's actually better that we had problems.
Right.
And we addressed them and we faced them head on. In fact, our global CEO, Claudio Domenicali, he is the guy who's like, this is unacceptable. We could do better. We can do better. We can build a motorcycle that has 36,000 mile service intervals. You don't have to come in every 6,000 miles. We can build motorcycles that are more reliable. We need to change this perception of the brand. And when we started like being very self-aware of as a company, because it's that sometimes it's easy when you're a beautiful brand to like believe your own bullshit.
Oh yeah, well it's almost an ego thing too. Of like, well, I heard you got to get it fixed every 6,000 miles, and it's this amount, and they're like, it's not for you.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? I'm not even
yeah.
kidding. That would be the vibe in the shop. Like, yes, move on.
Yeah,
like,
don't worry. There's 10 other people that will buy this.
Let me ask you, how did they change into the new motor and technology? And I mean, these Ducatis and these BMWs have some insane technology. Where were they getting the engineers and stuff? Were they new up and coming hot shots? Were you guys finding guys that were doing R&D and like, here's the new motor, here's the new traction control, here's the heated grips and all of that? Because electronics on a Ducati, that didn't even exist, and now they're just state of the art.
Yeah, you're lucky if you had like a LCD clock.
Oh my God.
Remember back in the day?
God. And that never would work,
So, where that came from, this is actually what's really cool and is a real differentiator for us. It came from racing. You think about the MotoGP effort of what we've done.
Right.
And racing at that level. And very rarely do people take that technology that they race. I mean, how many people take Formula One cars and figure out a way to put that motor in something for the street?
Right.
It's sometimes that stuff runs at such a high level. So the Desmo Sedici, the original one we started racing that bike, that V4 motor has evolved and continuously evolved to the point where we're like, okay, this is now going to be the motor that we're bringing to the street.
It's crazy. It's crazy that motor is in a multistrada,
Yeah. I mean, as an example, one of the really cool bits of tech, which I love it because it's analog tech, it's like tube amps type tech.
Yeah.
But the crankshaft normally rotates forward on a motorcycle. So what we did on the Desmo Sedici engine and that V4 motor is we did a counter-rotating crankshaft. So it actually rotates the opposite direction that your wheels are rotating. So when you throw that thing into a corner, it actually reduces some of the gyroscopic effect that doesn't give you that kind of whoa when a motorcycle goes down.
That's crazy.
So it takes let's say a 400-pound motorcycle and it makes it handle like a lighter bike.
Yeah, because if you let off on the gas real fast, it would definitely do that.
You get that little inertia
and you
thing
even
going.
see the riders when they go, they go in, they get that fucking real quick. Yeah. And I'm always like, those guys got ice in their blood. They don't. That's like normal shit. That's like cracking your knuckles to them. That's what they do. They wobble in the turn.
Yeah, they know it's coming.
Yeah,
and so they compensate for it. But like, dude, we're not riding at that level.
No.
So when that happens, especially, let's say, maybe not a horribly experienced rider, you can spook you and you can do something stupid. So that tech came directly from it. When you think about the traction control and the ability for us to adjust, I mean, you can put new tires on a Ducati and you can actually, you could set up a thing where push a couple buttons on the dash and it will calibrate the tires.
Wow.
For the settings on the motorcycle so that when you're rolling away, it says keep at this speed in this gear for X amount of time. It counts down. Tires are calibrated. So
that's crazy.
This stuff comes from what we learn on the track. And the trickle down comes right down to us. The frames that we use come from what we learned at that level. I could say sincerely, we're a company that takes what we've learned on the track and we apply it to the street. So it is a rolling R&D lab. And plus it's racing. So we get entertainment out of it. We get something to cheer on. But then I get that little piece of it. So when I'm riding up the canyon on the multistrada, I'm like, oh yeah, I know this motor.
Yeah.
This is basically the street version of a GP motor.
It's crazy.
Yeah.
And the adventure bike world really exploded, man, in the last 10 years. Of course, BMW completely dominating that. And I think a lot of it kind of really hit when that Ewan McGregor thing around the world hit. And all of a sudden people are like, man, I want to ride around the world on a motorcycle, know? And I completely changed from the Harley world immediately into, of course, loving water-cooled because no heat, man, I rode miles and miles of just heat, and then also just loving to be up a little higher and be able to see over cars and what's coming on the road, and then just boogieing off road like to Joshua Tree, like, oh, here we go.
Yeah, where's that road go?
And then we're going.
That's the beauty about that type of motorcycle.
Oh my God!
I'm an adventure motorcyclist, probably my dominant type of riding.
Yeah,
these
same
days.
here now.
And it's for the exact reason, like I can go as fast as I need to in the twisty canyons.
Yeah,
and maybe I've slowed down a hair, but I can do it as fast as I need to. But then I see something off road, or I see this mountain pass that I want to take, or I'm like, I'm in. I'm all in.
Especially out here, Colorado. Oh my God!
Between Colorado and California, I mean, really some of the best roads for those sorts of adventures. And I mean, in fact, I'm going to be doing a ride next month. We just launched a new bike. Actually, we'll be launching it next month.
Oh, what is it?
Called the Desert X.
What's that? Is it out?
This is no. So we'll start.
I mean, is it on the website?
Yeah, it's on the website.
Hold on, let me look at it real quick.
So it is the first time in, I don't even know, 25, 30 years that we put out a production motorcycle with a 21-inch front wheel.
Oh, wow. You got a 21 now, 21, like a KTM.
Yeah, so 21-inch wheel.
Wow.
And it's inspired from the old bikes that like we used to race at Dakar.
Wow,
and so it kind of it has that look, that aesthetic, but this bike is going to be a blast to ride. I'm so excited about it because it also it allows us once again to kind of take that enthusiasm of the Ducati brand and extend it into a little bit of a different world. So you have that same motor, that the character 950 twin that's going to be in that bike.
And what's it called?
It's called the Desert X.
Okay, let me find it here. Oh God, look at that multi. Looks great.
That's a multi V2.
Let's see, Desert.
There it is. It's coming up.
Oh,
You're
okay.
almost there, right there.
Oh, right there. Oh, wow. I remember I saw the press release on it.
Yeah.
As soon as I saw this, I was like, oh, that looks like an old 70s. Yeah, you're right. Dakar.
Like a Dakar racer.
Yeah, it looks just like that. Oh, my God, dude. That bike is so good. Now, what's that going to cost?
They're around 16, 17.
And what's the engine on it?
So that's a 950 twin.
Oh, I got it.
So we went with a little bit smaller displacement because
it's kind of like the Beamer, the smaller GS, the GS 900 or whatever.
Exactly. So something that's a bit smaller. Because really what you want rideable torque. You don't need top end for a bike like this.
No.
I'm going to be taking this. We're going to do the press launch in Colorado next month. And then a friend of mine, Jamie from Moto Geo, who has a really cool YouTube channel out there.
Right.
Him and I are going to go do 12 mountain passes over 12,000 feet in 4 days.
Wow.
We're calling it the Dirty Dozen.
Wow.
And so we're going to document this, and then we're going to create this challenge so that other Ducati riders can actually go do this challenge. And then every year we're going to come up with a new challenge. But this is the bike that will rip through those mountain passes. And I mean, I'm talking like these are gnarly.
4-cylinder engine?
No, it's two. It's a twin.
It's two. Oh, wow.
It's a twin.
It's a twin. Is it like the old Multistrato engine?
No, it's actually the motor that is it's the 950. It's a Testastrada 11 degree.
Oh yeah, I know.
Engine.
Yeah.
So it's an 11 degree.
Yeah.
And it's the same motor that was used in the Multistrada 950 or V2, the Hyper Motard.
Oh yeah, the first Multistrada, the weird one with the crazy fairing.
So that was actually an air cooled.
Right, I remember that. Yeah, that was the one that you'd have to do the valve adjustments on.
Yeah, that one still was 6,000 miles. I had one of those too.
Yeah. Now, is this Diavo has a yellow frame?
Yeah, that was actually that was done. It's called Black and Steel. That bike was done as a design exercise by our colleagues in Italy, and it was shown at an event, and people were like, "Build it."
Oh, did you?
So
guys?
we built. We built.
You can buy this now?
Oh yeah.
Holy shit, that thing's beautiful, dude.
Yeah.
I mean because the reason I love the AMG was a white frame.
Yeah.
It was like, whoa, this is so different for a Ducati, a white frame, but this thing is unreal.
And man, those bikes are the Diavo 1260 motor. That is such a fun bike to ride.
Is that 4-cylinder?
No, that's a twin.
Twin. Yeah, it's the same motor. They're still using the same motor.
Same motor in there. Yep. In fact, the one that you had was a 1200.
Right.
And this is the 1260. And the difference between those two motors, besides obviously the displacement, but the big thing is it has variable cam timing. They have it called DVT, Ducati Variable Timing. And what it ultimately is that under lower RPM, you get nice torque.
I read about that.
Yeah, but then as the cam profile opens up on a higher RPM, it basically gives you that top end that you
That's
expect.
insane that it's like variable timing, like just adjustable on the fly as you're riding.
Yeah,
Oh, man. Now, where's Ducati at in the MotoGP? Who's the king this year?
So in terms of MotoGP, we're running as a manufacturer, because it's amazing how many bikes we've got out there. But as a manufacturer, we're leading the points championship right now.
Wow.
And we have a couple riders, and it's really interesting. We have a guy named Pecco. Jack Miller, who is actually Australian, has been riding with the Ducati team as well. But also we have satellite teams that are kicking ass. So it's amazing. I think we have somewhere between 7 to 9 riders out there, and I might be wrong exactly with the count, but so many satellite teams. In fact, Valentino Rossi actually launched his own satellite team riding Ducatis this year. He's not riding, but he's coaching new riders. And so the bikes out there are going crazy. We're doing really, really well in terms of GP. The championship, honestly, it's going to be tough for us to get it. The manufacturer championship will get it, but rider, it's probably not going to happen, because we've had some guys that have done really well, and then they have a couple bad races, and man, you're just all over the points.
Yeah. Do you go to the Austin race?
Oh yeah.
I want to go this year.
You got to come.
Yeah,
you got to come. April next year.
Yeah.
You got to come. You're our guest. You'll have a blast. It's so much fun.
I'm in.
And then we'll do Ducati Island.
I'll bring Bill Burr with me.
Dude, you guys will love it.
Oh no, we went for the Formula One, and we're like, we got to, because we were going to go to the GP in Isle of Man. The fucking pandemic hit.
I went to the 99th TT, and I have to say, even though it's not our thing, like we don't typically race there, as a motorcyclist, it's something you have to check off.
I love your dog. You've got a what are they?
Weimaraner.
A Weimaraner. Yeah, I know the fucking name. My brain is just fried right now because I just love his look. He's just so cool.
Like your dog, we're talking. We're thick. It's like your dog. We're talking. We're thick as thieves.
I know.
So he's. Sadly, I don't have a sidecar. I do have a scrambler, and I've thought about putting a sidecar on the side of my scrambler.
The scrambler really killed it for you guys.
It's
Holy
such a
shit,
fun bike,
right?
Man. But you think about it from Ducati. We were talking about like that older mentality, and let's say the traditional mentality that if you ride a Ducati, you got to be a pro, right? You've got to be super professional. You have to be really
That's
skilled.
what you think.
Yeah, I mean, that's what a lot of people think, which isn't necessarily the case. There are a lot of bikes that are incredibly forgiving even for new riders. But the thing about the Scrambler is you look at that bike and it just makes you smile.
They nailed it with the vintage flair, and also the people that don't want to get a Sportster, they've got this other option now that is so badass. The thing is beautiful.
The cool thing about that bike is it's brought us returning riders. So people that came back to motorcycling, because they're like, oh, the kids are out of the house, and they're like, okay, I think I can get a motorcycle now. The missus will let me, or the mister will let me, or whatever
or I'm
the
divorced.
case may be, or divorced, and they're just like, time to live, And then so it's been good to get returning motorcyclists. We've had a lot of new riders, which is great because then they get into it, and I'm like, man, we just created new motorcyclists. That's a good thing for the whole industry. And
it's the gateway drug.
It is, and then a lot of women riders because it's an unintimidating bike. When I pull up on my Scrambler to a stoplight, it doesn't matter who's next to me. It can be, a hot girl, some old dude, or somebody with a stern face. They look at the motorcycle and they just smile. Yeah. Because it just makes people smile. And it's funny, you can not be a motorcyclist and you're like, oh, that's cool.
It's great. You watch guys, so you got a Panerai on.
Yeah, it's funny. You were saying that, like, I got to go to Italy later this week, and on the way back, we're like 1-to-1.
I saw that. I
was talking to my service director. We were talking just yesterday. He's like, so what are you going to do? I was like, I am going to stop at the watch shop in the Frankfurt airport. Like, 1-to-1.
1-to-1 is crazy.
Yeah. So I love Panerai basically because of the fact that they're an Italian watch.
Of course.
And the old diver thing.
Yep.
But it's also very mechanical.
Oh yeah, and it's a classic design.
Yeah. I love it. Yeah. But you could always nice to have a couple extra somethings.
You guys seem to have done a pretty good job of getting some bikes into some celebrities' butts too. Also, especially with the Scrambler and people. Do you approach them, or how does that go about?
So I've been the guy who's historically been responsible for most of the films and those sorts of things.
Yeah.
And we have some relationships, but to be candid,
they just buy them.
And they
Orlando Bloom's got a Paul Smart.
I mean, those guys, you know, we reach out to maybe after the fact, or if there's something going on, we invite them to a race. But you know, the beauty is that they just kind of naturally gravitate. And I'm also, I'm a firm believer in, I'm not going to exploit it.
Yeah.
You know, a lot of people we don't pay people to ride our bikes. Like that's fake, man. Like, it's unauthentic.
Yeah.
Like, there are lots of brands, and I have friends that are celebrities, musicians, just like I'm sure you do as well, actors, comedians, whatever. And they're like, oh, so-and-so wants to give me a motorcycle. It's like, well, take it, dude.
Yeah.
Like, take it.
Take it.
Good luck. Take it, sell it.
Sell it and buy a Ducati.
I got a great story. There is a gentleman, A-lister, that's been in a lot of great movies.
Yeah.
And he wanted to buy a new Diavel. And we've done things where he's like, hey, I'm going to be in Philadelphia visiting some family. Could you loan me a bike? Sure.
Yeah.
I'll loan you a bike. 3 to 5 days. Hey, you're going to be there. Have something to ride.
Killer.
What's the worst thing that can happen is somebody gets a picture of you stepping off the bike.
Yeah.
So, and nothing happens. No sweat. So he rode the bike for a while, and he calls us up, and he's like, okay, I got to get this bike. It was a Diavel. He's like, I got to get this Diavel 1260, man. This thing is just too cool. Will you guys take my Aprilia Triumph and something else in on trade? I'm like, well, we don't sell directly, but you know, you could talk to our dealer and we'll connect the dots and make sure that they take good care of you. But at the end of the day, man, it's between, so he traded in 3 bikes. One of them he had got for free. I know.
Yeah.
But to this day, I could say that we've only ever given in the time that I've been with Ducati 2 motorcycles away. And the 2 motorcycles were just recently when we raced the Mid 400. This guy, Jordan Graham, who raced the Mid 400 for us, he went out there and he crushed it. I mean, he hung it out there, and he basically gave us this legacy of the brand. And we thought, what better way to reward him? Because we didn't pay him for racing. He just is like, he's the kind of guy who just races because he loves it. And we're like, you know what? We built a motorcycle that was inspired by the race win at the Mid 400. We partnered with a brand called Fast House to do this, which is like a northern like just north of LA brand that does a lot of motocross stuff. And we did a Fast House edition, and so we gave him his number 47 of that bike. And then the owner of Fast House was a great guy, this guy named Kenny Alexander, same thing, we gave him one. That's the only, but I don't look at that as giving it, they earned him.
Yeah, oh yeah, you know? Totally.
And it wasn't celebrity status or anything, so, you know, I do get the occasional, hey, you know, so-and-so's giving me a bike.
Yeah.
You know, what could you guys do? And we'll make sure you get really well taken care of.
Yeah.
You know, and then I've even had a couple actors that have bought some amazing motorcycles, and I find out, and then I send them a jacket with a nice little note saying, hey, welcome to the Ducati family.
Yeah.
And it's my way of saying, we recognize and appreciate you riding a motorcycle. And
some of my comedian friends that I met who I didn't even talk to or didn't know that were high level, we bonded over motorcycles and Ducati, and one was Dave Chappelle. He saw me come in with a helmet, and he's like, man, you ride? And I go, yeah. And he goes, I love riding. I got a Ducati. And he's got a Scrambler. To this day, he remembers my name, and he always goes, man, what are you riding now? You know, and it's such a great bond to have with somebody other than just talking comedy, you know, just like, oh yeah, I can go over here and talk motorcycles with this guy, and it'll give me a little freedom away from the business, you know. So
yeah, I
love that.
You gotta have that disconnect.
Yeah.
Well, whenever he's on tour, I always get a call from our dealers, and he's like, hey, Dave Chappelle just came in here because, like, he's in Portland. He wants to go visit Moto Corsa, which is a great dealership
he
out
loves
there.
him.
Like, yeah, and I, you know, that I love those stories because it's also authentic.
Yeah.
And, you know, as motorcyclists, just like most rock and roll or good rock and roll, we got good bullshit detectors, man. Like,
It's all about authenticity, man.
You could see if somebody is riding that bike and it's been staged or placed or whatever.
Right.
And even a lot of the movies and stuff that we do, it's, you know, we've got people that we've worked with over the years, but it comes down to we turn down roles that would be amazing roles in terms of the exposure, but it's like, that doesn't make sense for our brand, or that's not real. And we didn't turn this down, but we had discussions on the new Top Gun movie, and we're like, no, dude, Tom Cruise rode a Kawasaki in that first one. Like, it would look weird if like a Ducati got placed into that. And so like
it would look like product placement.
Yeah, and
that's what it would look like.
And that's the worst kind of product placement.
It is. It's like, especially when people are nostalgic, they're like, oh man, what happened to his Kawasaki? You know, and that's a great scene in the movie where he fucking pulls the cape off and gets on his old bike.
Yeah,
it's great.
Exactly. In the new movie, he's riding in an H2.
Yeah.
So like, here's some super badass. Which, hey, hats off to Kawasaki for that, because you know that was a ballsy bike to make.
Yeah.
But it needs to be real. If it's not real, I mean, I'm a stickler, even though we don't always get it, but I'm a stickler about the sound. You know, if somebody uses our motorcycle for a movie, like we write it into the contract of our loan agreement that they have to record the sound. And some people,
you can't have like a zoom, 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 like, because you know a guy doing soundscape doesn't understand differences in motorcycles. He just Googles up in his fucking sound catalog motorcycle, and there it is.
Sport motorcycle, or motorcycle, and then you get a potato.
Yeah, you're like, wait, that's a dry clutch Ducati. You know, that's a.
And you know, every motorcyclist that's watching that, or any self-respecting, is just twisting their seat.
They go like, this is bullshit.
And then you know who gets blamed? We do.
I know. They're like, you guys did that. I was like, nah.
Sorry, man. But it is. And there are some guys that really respect it. Like when we did Tron years ago. I mean, we went to Skywalker Ranch, and they were take the bike out there, and they're like, okay, go through the gears and go.
Wow.
So there's some people that really get it.
Yep.
And that's also why that movie, in terms of as a motorcyclist, it resounded with a lot of people, because of course it's badass stunts in it too. But yeah, it's a big part of it. And when we do that, we do the placement. It's got to be. I call it. It's more of like just an integration. My strategy is we have to move the story forward. If we try to usurp the star, then it's phony. Like, then we should just go make a Ducati commercial if we're going to do that.
Yeah. Well, thanks for doing the show, man.
My pleasure.
You ready to see some comedy tonight?
I can't wait. I'm really looking forward to it. You tell me, because I'm on both, so I can do both.
Oh yeah, come.
7 or 9.
Either one, man. They're both great.
Okay.
Well,
I might just make it a night.
Yeah. There you go. Just hang out all night.
So you're doing 2 completely different sets, right?
Oh no, they rotate different jokes in and out. You know, I'm working on an hour right now, so. They'll be similar, maybe different orders and stuff, but that's how it works.
Cool.
You know, I mean, of course, it's all organic. It could be, who knows where it could fucking go, you know?
Well, I'm planning the 7.
Okay.
Just because I got to get up early tomorrow to
that's
take
fine.
off. And
just
then,
go 7.
And then I said I'm heading out to Italy for World Ducati Week.
Oh, fuck, that's great.
Which is a really exciting, I mean, we haven't had it in 4 years for obvious reasons.
Yeah, when's that?
So it's this upcoming weekend.
Wow.
So it's in Misano. So the Marco Simoncelli circuit. So Misano Adriatico, right on the Adriatic Sea. And it's basically a gathering of crazy, passionate Ducati people from all over the world.
Wow. I'd love to see that sometime, man.
You're always welcome. Like,
wow.
But the only way, unfortunately, this year, I'm doing it in a car.
In a car?
In a car.
Wow.
I told myself I would never go if I had to do it in a car, but it's just the way it is this year. So, but my pleasure, man. Really, it was great doing this show.
Thank you so much, man, for doing the show. And it's great to talk to somebody that loves motorcycles and is in the business of one of the greatest motorcycle companies ever to exist. So very cool. Thanks, and thanks for bringing your dog by. And I will see you tonight, my man. Do you have any kind of Instagram or any kind of just follow Ducati, right? That's the best way.
DucatiUSA.com.
Yeah.
And an Instagram at Jason Chinnock, Chinnock, all one word.
Yeah, the Instagram is just Ducati.
Well, there's Ducati, that's global, and then we're Ducati USA.
Oh, gotcha.
North America.
Oh, there's 2 different ones, right?
Yeah, so if you want to see the stuff that we're doing locally, that's on there as well.
That's great. God, this bike kills me, man.
You come ride.
I will.
Let's ride.
I'll ride that.
You've got an open invitation now.
I'm riding that. Absolutely, I'm on that. Thank you for doing the show. And thanks, everybody, for tuning in. Don't forget to subscribe on iTunes. Leave a review. It greatly helps. And also subscribe to the YouTube channel. Keep riding out there and stay safe. See you guys.